Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me this morning on the webinar, Win More Construction Work Quickly and Accurately with Sage Estimating. The estimating team in a company may not be the biggest team, but it is certainly the most valuable team because, let's be honest, that's where you'll win your work and where your company becomes profitable. It starts with a good estimator, number one, but also that person's performance can be significantly improved with the use of a good dedicated estimating software such as Sage Estimating Software. So that's what I'm going to show you today, is a few highlights of the software. There's a lot of depth and breadth to it. It does fit a large majority of different types of contractors, from small 1 or 2 person show to a very large general contractor, even industry specific contractors such as concrete, MEP, and so forth. So a wide range of types of contractors, even folks that do self-performed work versus construction management, where maybe you're simply going out and getting bids, or you're doing a combination of subbed work and self-performed work. So the system is very flexible and does not dictate the way you estimate. So I'm going to show you some of that today here in this webinar. But with Sage Estimating, first and foremost, you can cut your estimating time by 50%. And then also ensure that you have ultimate estimate accuracy. When you're coming from manual methods and Excel, those are often very, one, in a way siloed, but also two, inaccurate, because when you use Excel, you really risk breaking those cells and formulas in your estimating spreadsheet. It's always also not easy to get everybody communicating and on the same page. And with Sage Estimating, there is one central database that your entire team can share with the same items, the same assemblies, the same cost data, and so forth. And related to that, you can keep your data at your company. It's very easily for somebody to take, some manual estimates and Excel files with them. With Sage Estimating, there's security built into it, so each user profile can be set to what you need people to see. So somebody may have administrator rights to oversee the database, but then there might be others on the team that does not have access to manipulate the database behind the scenes and further take your data with you or with them. Sage Estimating also scales very easily with companies' estimating goals. From just doing simply 2D takeoff that's integrated with Sage Estimating, or even BIM estimating that's integrated, full flexibility to estimate the way you want to and the way you want to grow your estimating. We know, technology is always changing. There's always ways to improve your estimates. BIM 3D, which you'll see in a future webinar, that's another way to really increase and speed up your estimating time, increase your accuracy. Furthermore, with Sage Estimating, the user interface, you can see an image on this slide here, and we'll get into it in a moment, but it's very, very familiar. It's an easy transition from a simple spreadsheet tool in Excel, because it's built to look like it with that added capability. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation here in Sage Estimating today. Again, feel free to use the chat if you have any questions, and I will try to get to those here at the end today. So I'll get out of here. What you're looking at now is the Sage Estimating user interface. So just a couple of highlights on the interface here. Again, built a lot like the familiarity of the Microsoft products, with the ribbon bar and the tab up here at the top. You'll notice that I have a blank, what I'll call a spreadsheet here, and that's because Sage Estimating builds up as you go. So you'll see in a moment when I do some takeoff here what that looks like. But with Sage Estimating, you can have multiple types of layout, and those can all be shared amongst your team, or they can be personal to you as an estimator. So you can see I've got here a series of personal layouts. I've got a couple of shared ones with my team as well here. And that allows you to easily go and view data in different ways. The other way you can view data differently is through what's called sort sequences. So I'll point out the tabs down here at the bottom. Those are called sort sequences. And I've set those up from my database. So I can look at my takeoff by assembly, by phase or item, by the order I took them off in. I can look at by alternate, by who estimated it, by what location it is, if I had a multi-building or multi-phase project, for example. With Sage Estimating's database, also to note, you can sort in master format or uniformat. There are various ways you can sort. So again, that ultimate flexibility for the way you need to estimate as a company. Over here in the takeoff tab, that is going to be my main areas of takeoff. So I have item, assembly, model. You'll see a couple one-time and quick takeoff here. So quick takeoff is really just a very simple grocery pick of items. So just like item takeoff here, this is what you see as a tree. I'm in master format 1 through 48 here in this particular database. And with databases, there are a range of pre-built databases available for Sage Estimating. You can also build your own, or you can have one made for you. So very easy to use whatever database you would like to have for your company. This is just a typical commercial general contractor database. Again, as I noted before, there are specific databases out there for specific types of construction companies. So if you're just doing concrete, for instance, maybe you only want a couple of folders, general conditions and concrete, for example. So let me go into, I'll go into an item here and I'll just pick one and I'll show you what that looks like. Alternatively here, I can search this tree to get a quick pick. So if I knew that I wanted to do like concrete forming, I could type that in and I could have the database search for me. So I'll just make it simple here. And it will pull up, if I'm at concrete, just all of the concrete items that I have in here. So I could go in and I could pick like a sawing the slab here, for instance. So it will go ahead and grab that and put it in my spreadsheet. You'll notice here I haven't associated a takeoff quantity or cost with this item. So this was just one of my quick pick items. But again, I could go through and I could go in and pick some forms and so forth. When I do that, different assemblies and items can be set up different ways. So you'll notice that this one now that I chose, it's asking me some questions. So the first one, I didn't have any data in because I just wanted to enter it myself in the spreadsheet. This one, I'm going to go in and just give it a length here and a width. And I'll hit OK. And when I do that, I now have a quantification automatically in my spreadsheet, and I have an associated cost with it as well. And that's because with Sage Estimating, you can have choose to have costs associated with your items that live in the database behind the scenes, not in the spreadsheet, or you can choose to not have any costs or any quantities associated in your database. So that just gives you an example of the flexibility of how you can operate the database behind the scenes. So I could go in and just put, a linear footage for sawing this concrete slab, for instance. Oh, and of course, it crashed on me today. That rarely happens, but of course it happens during a webinar. Let me restart that one up here. And I will go in and I'll open up my estimate again here. Alrighty, so I'll go ahead and undock that. So let me go back to where it was there. So saw cutting this slab. So I can go in and put a quantity in there. And once I put a quantity in, I have my my item satisfied and quantified there because I now have the quantity. I had a cost already associated with that and so forth. This is a very condensed spreadsheet view that you're seeing here, by the way. With the different layouts, I can go in and I can change my layout here as well very easily. So these can be pre-built by me or by you beforehand. So I could go in and say, let's go look at it a different way. I could put colors in and so forth. So very easy to flip between different layout views if you want to see some things differently. I can also go in and easily insert other columns if I want to as well and save new layouts. So you'll see there's a bunch of different items I can view in my spreadsheet and so forth. And so the system builds up everything as you go. So you're not having to enter this data yourself. It's built in your database, and then any column you turn on it will show you that data there. So with takeoff, let's go to assembly takeoff. This is one of the most valuable tools in Sage Estimating, and that's because Sage Estimating has what's called smart assemblies. And I'll show you that here, what I mean in a minute, but smart assemblies, whether you're doing a quick conceptual bid or a very detailed bid, they make sure that you're not leaving anything out of your estimate, and they make sure that you're not accounting for too much as well. So if I go in here, you'll see I've got my database here with a series of folders. I've got one that's even quick setup conceptual, so I could do a very quick assembly for an entire building if I wanted to get a quick budget, for instance. Or I could simply get very granular and do it just for some footings or some slabs and so forth. If I go in and I will run a quick assembly for concrete here, and I'll do just a simple slab. Once I select that, in the right hand quadrant here, you're going to see that I have a series of questions that I can answer now. And down at the bottom, you're going to see all of the items that make up this entire assembly for this slab on grade. So when I put my area in there, and then I put it a depth in, it'll give me hints as I'm going through this here as well. So notice as I hover over the depth slab, I now have a little yellow Q. So Sage Estimating is built to standardize your estimating team so they're not forgetting how to quantify something. So for example, 3 inches equals 0.25. So I got to put in this number in a certain way. However you want your estimators to put these numbers in, it can be built that way. So again, this is just how this particular database is built. You can, even if you bought a pre-built database, you can manipulate the database however you need to. Pre-built databases just give you that logic and that functionality in it, so you're not having to build it from scratch yourself. So I could just go in and I'll just put in like a 6-inch slab here. If I want to account for waste, I can put a percentage in there. Notice that it also is asking me the concrete strength, and it's giving me a range to enter. So I could say it's 3,500 instead of 3,000. Is there a color to it? Yes or no? What is the slab type? So as I'm going in here, I can just put my numbers in. Is there going to be a edge of slab? Yes or no? Well, right now I'm saying yes. When I say no to that, some of the questions will disappear. So that's what I mean by smart assemblies. And this being a really valuable tool to keep your team on the same page, to keep your team standardized, making sure you're not forgetting anything in that estimate. I'm just going to make this simple and say no edge here today. Is there cushion sand? No. Blockouts and so forth. So you'll see a series of questions, and they're simple yes or no questions. And again, they're popping up with more questions when I say yes or no to something. So very easy to run this here. And I'm just putting some random numbers in here today, but you'll see as I go, and I can have these be as simple or as complex as I want. This is a pretty detailed assembly that I've got here. Yours can be very much simpler. So keep in mind, again, it's very flexible, does not dictate the way you estimate. When I hit the green plus button here, it now quantifies all of my different items that are in this assembly as I've answered them. So I'm not having to individually quantify and manually calculate anything. The system is doing it for me based on my simple inputs. At this time, I have the ability in this area to go change any quantities. So if I needed, a safety number or something like that, I could go in and change any of these individual items. And notice at the upper left, what it does for me here is it creates a pass every time I make a change to that assembly. So it'll date it and it will timestamp it. So then later I can go back in and I can review that audit pass. So Sage Estimating will audit everything you do here. So look at my audit pass. When I right click and view that, I have my first pass in there, and then it lists my second pass and what I changed there. So once I hit OK, this assembly here, by the way, is not in my estimate yet. So it gives you a level of checks and balances before you generate to the estimate. But once I hit OK here or hit enter, I will send it over to my estimate. Do note here that you can add attachments to any of these assemblies or line items, also notes that will transfer to your estimating spreadsheet. So I'll toggle over here to my estimate, and now you'll see I have that slab on grade quantified here in my spreadsheet. So just like that, I've got all of my different items that I need in there without having to individually pick or cherry pick them. It's all in there for me. What I can do very easily at this point in time is if I know something changed, I can go in and substitute an item very quickly from the spreadsheet. So I can right click here and say substitute item, and perhaps we're needing to have a 4,000 PSI here instead of 3,500. So that will change that out for me. It will also re-quantify it if the cost has changed and recalculate here. At any time, I can also go back and review this assembly. So if I wanted to go back and I need to make a change at this level, I could do that, and I could review the audit passes and so forth here as well. So it makes it easy to go back and make changes and review what you did right from the spreadsheet. So at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and show you how alternates work in Sage Estimating. So that's another valuable tool that you're not going to really get from a spreadsheet or from manual methods. So you may have several of alternates in an estimate, and the alternates tool in Sage Estimating makes it really easy to handle multiple alternates very quickly and be able to slice and dice your numbers in different ways. So I'm on the alternate assembly view tab here. You can see that I don't have an alternate assigned to any of this right now. What I do have here is what's called my work breakdown structures, my default values tab, and I had it undocked here, but I can dock it. So just another UI thing, user interface thing. I can pull things onto different screens. I can dock things within each other. Just for the webinar today, we're on one little screen here today. It's a little bit of low real estate. But work breakdown structures allow you to organize your information in different ways. So they're related to these sort sequences at the bottom. So you'll see that assembly that I had run was not assigned an alternate. I didn't have it assigned an estimator yet and so forth. But anything that I run from here on out, if I were to identify, let's say it was part of the base bid prior to running the assembly or the item, I could also identify, who was estimating. So in this case, it's me. These work breakdown structures are configurable to you as well. So I just have a few examples of what they could be. You can also relate these to your construction schedule. So if you're using a Microsoft project, for instance, for scheduling, you could have work breakdown structures work for you in terms of organizing the estimate in the way that your project needs to be scheduled out. So maybe we have bid items, maybe we don't, but maybe this is bid item 1. So I've made a few identifications here. And then the next item in assembly that I run, let me undock this here again, will be quantified with those new work breakdown structures. Alternatively, what I can do is after the fact, since I had this slab on grade, I did not go ahead and identify with an alternate. I could actually select everything I want and I can move it into my base bid. So I've already got the base bid populated there. I can select from my options and just go ahead and have it be put in there. And if anything kind of is straggling out there, you can go ahead and drag and drop it into those base bids as well. So back into assemblies, let's just do a quick general conditions. So maybe it's a 9-month job and we're just doing a quick lump sum bid for this. Again, all of those items, and these are configurable to you, what you need in your general conditions. Add pass, quantify it, send it over the spreadsheet. And now you can see I've got the general conditions assembly here categorized automatically under base bid because I made that identification beforehand. If I moved over into this next source sequence, you'll now see, because I had also pre-populated that with my name, I now have it associated with me as the person who estimated it. There are a few items that, again, will highlight orange, so the system will give you warnings if you're not satisfying something. So again, in this case, I didn't have a cost associated you know, with some of these items, because maybe we don't know how much a building permit is going to cost or extra plans and so forth. So those may be variables that we may not want those costs living in our database. So I'm going to go in and just say that maybe it's going to cost us a couple $100 for some extra plans and, you know, $1,000 for a building permit. And again, that orange goes away once I've satisfied a missing number. Let's put that in there for now. So just gives you a quick view of work breakdown structures, and then as associated with alternates. So let's just say, for instance, we wanted to make an alternate slab on grade. Perhaps we wanted a little bit different combination on how it's built. For example, I could go in at this point, I could change, and let me bring my work breakdowns back in here, change this over to alternate 1, and we'll keep it on that same bid item. And then I'm going to go in and just generate a new slab. Go ahead and pick that out here. And I'll just put a few numbers in here. A few different specifications. And that pass again. And that adds it over into my estimate here. So you'll see, once I go into, I'll go into my alternates here. I've got alternate 1 here, and I've got it included in my estimate. I could say excluded, and what that would do is it would show it as excluded from my estimate. And for some reason here, let me take a look at this. There we go. I've got alternate 1 now up here at the top, categorized with that new slab with the different specifications. And you'll see that I still have it, let me go over to bid item. It's still over there in bid item number 1, just because it's the same bid item. But if I were to go over into, I've got show excluded alternates in here. The summary button over here allows me to look at my alternates as I build up, and you'll see I've got alternate 1 included in here. And then I can actually put it in as excluded. What I do need to do with my statuses though is I need to go in and make sure that I have them set. So I'm going to set included is checked on, but excluded, I don't want that in my estimate. So when I do that, you'll now see the alternate 1, because I have it identified as excluded from my estimate, it'll highlight yellow and cross out the items for me. So it still gives me a visual of what's in my estimate without actually including it in my estimate total. So this makes it really easy for me to go in, and maybe that base bid's excluded, and we'll include alternate 1 instead. So if you had several more alternates, you could do this with each one. And alternates, by the way, if you had them set up in an Excel sheet, for whatever reason, if they came to you in Excel, or if you exported a file, you could pull them into Sage Estimating and very easily run with your alternates that way instead of entering each one here. But as you go along, it'll see the breakdowns for labor, material, subcontract, and so forth at a very high level in this summary view here. I'll go ahead and we'll just switch that back to excluded there. So just a quick taste of what happens when you use alternates in Sage Estimating. Now, one other very valuable tool in Sage Estimating is models. Those are not to be confused with BIM estimating models, 3D models, but they're simply interview models that make conceptual estimating really easy. So this is a tool, again, to help standardize your team and be able to really enable you to do conceptual estimates at a fraction of the time that you're used to doing. So if I pull a quick model here, I have a category of different models from site work to an entire building structure. You can get very granular or very wide in scope. So I could simply do an interior build out model, or I could do like maybe I'm just re-roofing a project. So you can get really quick estimates based on your models here. And these are all configurable to what you guys need to estimate as well. So if I want to do maybe just a single story office building, for instance, what it will do here is it'll ask me another series of interview questions. And they're similar to assemblies. It's really just that they are giving you an example of the actual building type with some standardizations in it for an entire building, for instance. So in this, I can also put a picture. So maybe this is a typical example, or maybe this is another typical example of what this building might look like. So actually very easy to build models, kind of fun to do as well. So really a valuable tool here if you guys aren't using these. And this is an option that you can have turned on in Sage Estimating or not. But we'll just say code 1 here is, again, those hints are coming up for me. 1 is an office building. I can just put in a quick, footprint area based on what I maybe know generally from the napkin sketch of the building. And I can just put in a rough, perimeter here and an average exterior wall height and how I'm going to intend to construct it. So very quick and easy to do. We'll say it has a flat roof, and let's just have a checkbox turned on that says, yes, we'll do a structural steel frame. So the questions can be answered by inputting numbers. You can turn checkboxes on. You can also have drop-down menu items if you want to select that way as well. Totally up to you. But you'll see here that quickly I have some general building specifications identified from my general napkin sketch of this building. I can say if it has multiple exterior finishes or not, and again, it'll ask me more questions based on what I know. So I can just give a quick, percentage and ratio of how the building is built here. So I'll go in and just put a percentage of brick to CMU, for instance. And then I'm done. So again, I could just have a general type of a building questionnaire, but I could go even deeper and say, what are my foundation specs? What's my exterior door specs? I have actually pre-filled the rest of this because our foundations are pretty similar, most projects. Just because I pre-filled here doesn't mean that rules. I can go in and change, any of these numbers that I want to as well. Just makes it a lot faster to pre-populate some of that stuff. That's pretty typical. But then you see end of interview and I'm done. So I can hit OK, and then what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and just generate this model over to our estimate. So again, that auditing capability, green light says go. We have a date and time stamp there, and I'm going to simply press the generate button, and I'm going to generate this model to my estimate. So just like that, I've got a very detailed, and I'll go over into assembly here, but I've got a very detailed estimate based on just a few inputs. So if you're doing a lot of conceptual estimating, I know that's pretty commonplace for contractors, and you don't get paid for doing that. If this is anything that could help you get paid faster, this is it. This will definitely speed up estimating time by using this. So now I'll move into reporting in Sage Estimating. So again, something that your manual methods in Excel doesn't necessarily have is the ability to pull reports. And there's hundreds of reports that come out of the box here, and they can all be configured to you as well and customized further if you need them to. But some example of reports that you can quickly pull. You can pull reports straight from what you see in your spreadsheet. So whatever tab you're on here in the spreadsheet, you can pull reports. You can get a standard or a detailed type of report. My drop down here, I can actually do a takeoff audit. So If you remember, everything is audited here in the system. I can go in and just do a quick, I'm just going to do a quick preview of this report here, but I can go in and see what my takeoff audit looks like. So reports, they'll generate a cover for you. Again, this is generic. You can put your logo and colors on it and so forth. It will date and timestamp it, and then it'll put detail what you're looking at here in this report. So again, I can see now I've got my date, my timestamp for everything that I put into this estimate here and the quantities and so forth. So that will give me a chance to review with my project team if I need to, to look for any potential discrepancies or things that I might have missed, but that gives you a good way to review what you've done in the estimate. Another report might be of interest to a lot of estimators is perhaps a quote sheet to send out to subcontractors or a bill of materials to give to your field teams. So again, I'll go in here, take a quick preview of this. It's kind of tiny on my screen. I apologize about that, but you can now see, I've got a bill of materials, what's my takeoff quantity, what's my order quantity, and what's the unit price. So my subcontractors, for instance, could go in and fill those in and send it right back to me with prices, and then I can include that in my estimate as an example. Alternatively, I can pull that bill of materials for my field team, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to make this landscape again so you can see a little more here. But bill of materials here, now you can see I've got exactly the material that I'm looking at with the takeoff quantities and order quantity, and then the unit price for it as well. If I want my team to know that, you can alternatively pull a different report that doesn't show pricing and so forth, just amounts. But it makes it really easy to quickly pull those reports from your estimate without having to manually configure it yourself. Another report that may be important to folks, or a couple different reports, the comparison and variance reports here. So I can compare up to 10 estimates in Sage Estimating, or I can compare, or I can see the variance between up to 10 different, or up to 2 different estimates. Did I say that right? I might have had that turned around. You can compare up to 10 estimates and you can see the variance between up to 2 estimates. So in this instance, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to do the current office building project that I'm on and then one that I've done before. So I'll go in and let's review this here. And maybe I'll make this quick 11 by 17 there. But now you can see that I've got my takeoff quantities for my projects here, and then you can see the costs between the two. And it'll break it down by labor, material, subcontract equipment, and so forth. So that just gives you a quick taste of reports in Sage Estimating. Again, there's hundreds of them out of the box here. With Sage Estimating, you can review unit prices. So not only can your takeoff be done in man hours, you can also take off and review in unit prices. You can also, if you are a company that uses crews in the field, you can estimate by crew instead of just man hour. So again, another way of full flexibility in Sage Estimating to perform your estimates according to how your company does business. And then you'll see there's some other analytical unit price analysis types of reports. There is a bid grid in this where if you had multiple subcontractors, you could input different subcontractors and select who you want on your job in here as well. So what you have seen today, again, is just a taste of what Sage Estimating can do for you and how it can really bring a lot of accuracy, a lot of security to your estimates, and make your team much more efficient, or your estimator if you're only one estimator. Because truly, the estimating team is a very valuable resource, and oftentimes there's not very many of you out there. And if you can have something to help you leverage your productivity, Sage Estimating is going to be it, because you don't have a lot of time in the day, and if anything can help you use your valuable knowledge to speed up your estimating time, it would be Sage Estimating. And you can further speed up estimating time if you're getting digital plans. There is a product called eTakeoff for Sage Estimating that dynamically and bidirectionally integrates with this tool. You will see eTakeoff in a further webinar, so do make sure you check out our website for other webinars that are upcoming, because on one of the next ones, I'm going to show you how eTakeoff pulls quantities right into your Sage Estimating estimate really automatically without having to even go through running assemblies or items in the estimate, or you can do a combination of the two. So again, you can save even 25 to 30% more of your time if you're having to do digital 2D takeoff, and then by having it dynamically linked with your Sage Estimating spreadsheet tool here. Very easy, again, to scale Sage Estimating. So not only to add licenses, Sage Estimating runs concurrently, so on a check-in, check-out basis. If you had a larger team or were growing your team, it's very easy to add another license in and get on your way with your new team members. And then also scalability, not only with 2D takeoff, but also 3D. So eTakeoff works with 3D BIM takeoff, both with Assemble and Navisworks. So that will be something another time we can go through as well. But ultimate flexibility for the future of estimating, a tried and true product that's always going to grow with you and always going to develop out. There is also, we have a webinar coming up on Friday on buyout for Sage Estimating. So if you are a contractor that buys out projects, there is a new buyout tool for Sage Estimating available. If you want to see more on that, join our webinar on Friday. That link will be at our website. But really quickly here, I'll just go back to my little presentation and give you some of our contact info here. So again, you can contact me with any questions. My email address is right there. Our direct number is there as well, and you can get connected with me. Our YouTube always has several videos, not only on Sage Estimating, but all other products, other tips, other past webinars, and so forth. So be sure to check out our YouTube page. Lots of free content on there. We also have a podcast called Builtcast that we have a lot of great interviews with construction industry and tech industry professionals, always building that up there as well. So make sure you subscribe to both of those. And again, as I mentioned, we have upcoming webinars and classes, more on the Sage Estimating front, other products as well. And we hope you'll take advantage of that because there's a lot of exciting things always happening, and it's very valuable to just, at least if anything, see what's new in products as well. So thanks again for your time. If you guys have any questions, I don't think I saw any. Oh, I guess I did have one. Can I bring, I'm using Excel currently. Can I bring my Excel database or my Excel items into my Sage Estimating database? Yes, you can. So you can build, if you're already set up on Excel, maybe you're an Excel whiz, you're really proud of what you've done. We totally get that. You don't want to, just discard that information. Sage Estimating has a database editor that can very easily pull in your Sage or your Excel items into Sage Estimating and create your own database. So you can start with your base and then build it out from there, build it into assemblies and so forth. So very easy to take your existing information and pull it into Sage Estimating. Hope to see you on another webinar. Thank you.